Hey, everyone.
Hey everyone. I think we're gonna wait a couple more minutes to see if anybody
Yeah,
else
yeah, sure,
trickles
sure.
in. Yeah. Okay, cool.
But you have started this event, right? Okay,
Yes, yeah, I started it.
okay.
I think we're just gonna wait like another minute or two. Seems like people are still trickling in, and then we'll get
Yeah,
started.
yeah.
Cool.
We can give in a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I think we can get started here. Hey everybody, I'm Logan. I'm gonna be going over our prompting with M365 Copilot presentation today. So let's get into it. So if you want, you can submit questions while we're going through the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it. It might be tough. Normally, we have somebody else kind of helping me out with some of the questions. But if I don't get to them during the presentation itself, we can definitely cover them all at the end. There should be time at the end for a little Q&A session if any of you guys have any questions. Yeah, so let's get started. Like I said, I'm Logan Matizan. I've been working at Red Sky Blue Water for close to 3 years now. And for the past year, I've been mostly focusing on working in the Copilot space. So yeah, let's get into it. So before we get started, let's go over a quick little agenda. First, we're going to just go over kind of a M365 Copilot overview, just kind of briefly to kind of just get an understanding of what we're talking about. And then we're going to review some security and trust things. I am not a security expert by any means, but there's a couple key details that are important that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some Gen AI in business operations. But then mostly we're going to be talking about prompting effectively in Copilot. And then we'll finish up with the Q&A and some closing remarks. So let's talk about some of the advantages of using Copilot and what Copilot can do for you. So integrated in the tools millions use every day. So the first and maybe the most prominent feature really of Copilot is the integration into all the other M365 apps you guys probably already use. And it's really one of the key differentiators from a lot of the other AI solutions out there, is that you can use it in all these applications that you're probably currently using. So you can create full-length presentation PowerPoints from a couple sentences of prompting. You can ask Copilot in Excel to write complex formulas for you and help you understand your data, just all using natural language. Or you can, have Copilot take meeting notes, for example, and reference them afterwards. So there's all these sorts of integrations within the M365 ecosystem, and it's really a key aspect of what makes Copilot so great. Next, moving on, understanding your work context. So Microsoft Graph plays a crucial role in enabling Copilot to deliver personalized and relevant responses. So by leveraging the data in your M365 tenant, like emails and documents and meeting recordings and contacts, the graph can provide Copilot with like a comprehensive understanding of the user's work environment. And this allows Copilot to tailor its suggestions and actions based on the user's specific needs and context. So for example, if you're drafting an email, Copilot can pull relevant information from previous emails, ensuring that the response is accurate and contextually appropriate. Extending your business data. So Copilot has over 1,400 pre-built connectors that allow Copilot to interact with other applications like CRMs or ERPs and many, many more. So Copilot can use this information from these third-party applications to help generate even more relevant responses, which is extremely useful. Customizing it to make it your own. So you can create agents, which are essentially custom AI chatbots. It's a little bit more than that, but we don't have time to get into all of it today. But these can connect to any outside data sources you want to, and you can do this all in Copilot Studio. And this really opens up like the possibilities of what you can do with Copilot. And you can get really creative in Copilot Studio to solve some specific challenges you may be facing by creating these agents. And then moving on to enterprise-grade security, privacy, and compliance. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later. But one of the big key takeaways is that Copilot inherits all M365 security and permissions that you already have in place. So you don't need to worry about your information getting into the wrong hands, but we'll touch a little bit more on that later. And then lastly, measuring AI impact and business value. So Microsoft has lots of tools and resources available for driving adoption and teaching people how to use Copilot effectively. There's also a Copilot dashboard where admins can view a bunch of different KPIs to see how Copilot's being utilized within the organization, which is a really helpful tool, especially in the whole change management side of things. So yeah, there's a whole lot here that we could talk about, but just kind of a quick overview of a couple of the advantages of Copilot before we talk about prompting. Okay, so there are two different types of Copilot. So you may be aware we have our paid for M365 Copilot, which is $30 per month per user, which is probably what most of you guys are familiar with. However, there's also Copilot Chat, which is something that Microsoft has been pushing a lot more recently, which is free. So there's a few key distinctions that we can just talk about really quick, so we're clear. So M365 Copilot, the paid version, that's what you're getting. You're going to be getting your integration into all the M365 applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. And this is also the version that can leverage work data from Microsoft Graph and third-party data via Graph connectors. And it can do things like summarizing documents, drafting emails, creating PowerPoint presentations, gaining insight in Excel, etc. And then Copilot Chat is a chat-based interface that allows users to interact with Copilot, through natural language. It's a lot more similar to ChatGPT, for example. So it does have some functionalities, not nearly as many as the full-fledged Copilot, but you can do stuff like file uploads and code interpretation and image generation. But it's not quite as fully fleshed out. It doesn't have quite as much functionality. But with all that said, the prompting aspect of this is going to be the same in Copilot Chat and M365 Copilot, the paid version. So that's just something to keep in mind, no matter whether you're using the free version or not. These prompting tips are going to be helpful either way. And one keynote, we're about to go over into security, but before we get into that, so some people might see, the free version and think it's less secure, but both Copilot Chat and the full-fledged M365 Copilot are not going to be using your data for any AI training purposes or any purposes for that matter at all. So no matter what, either paid version or free version, as we transfer into the security section here, just keep that in mind that they're both going to be equally as secure. So, like I said before, I am not a security expert, but there are two kind of key points that you should take away when talking about Copilot and security. So the first is what we were just talking about. Microsoft is not going to be using your data for anything. Your data is your own, just clear cut and simple. And the second point is that Copilot is going to inherit all the M365 security permissions you already have in place. So if somebody in your organization, ask Copilot about something they don't already have permission to access, Copilot's going to essentially just act if that doesn't exist. They're going to pretend like, nope, didn't hear you. And so nobody who doesn't have access to something already is going to somehow get access to that by interfacing with Copilot. However, this could expose, existing security issues that you haven't addressed. So that is one thing to keep in mind. If there are issues with your security structure, Copilot could potentially expose those, but it's not going to create any new ones. Cool. And this is another slide kind of reiterating what we already talked about in security a little bit, but we can just keep moving on here. Cool. A couple of interesting statistics from Microsoft here. Users report saving an average of 30% of their time on presentation creation and editing tasks with Copilot. So I, for one, I use Copilot to generate presentations all the time. It's really helpful. I think it's one of the best use cases. And the functionality has only gotten better and better over the past year of me having a license. So I definitely understand this number here. And the other stat we want to talk about is Copilot users benefit from a 40% increase in creation of visually appealing and engaging presentations. So I'm not 100% sure on how Microsoft calculates some of the statistics, but nevertheless, I can definitely attest that Copilot has definitely helped me at least create a lot more visually appealing content and a lot more efficiently too. That's really the key takeaway is being able to do the same quality of work, but a lot quicker because Copilot can assist with some of the monotonous parts of it. So start to the prompt. Let's get into why you're all here today. So obviously prompts are essentially how you ask Copilot to perform tasks for you, like, creating, summarizing, or editing content. But a quick introduction to prompting. Let's think about prompting as having a conversation with an assistant. So you want to use plain but clear language and provide context to ensure Copilot understands your requests. But the more specific and detailed your prompts, the better the response you're going to receive from Copilot, just like if you're talking to a real person. So let's just go over a couple really quick examples, quick basic examples before we dive into some of the more structures, the structure of it all. So learning about projects and concepts. So for instance, you could ask, what is Project X and who are the key stakeholders working on it? This would be to help you gather information about a specific project and the people involved. Editing text, if you need to refine a document, you might say, check this product launch rationale for inconsistencies. This prompt would direct Copilot to review and improve the text. Transforming documents to convert content into a different format. You could ask, transform this FAQ doc into a 10-slide onboarding guide. This would, help you repurpose existing information for new uses. Summarizing information for summarizing content. Yeah, you might say, write a session abstract for this presentation. And this prompt would help you condense information into a concise summary. And then creating engaging content. When you need to generate new content, you can ask create a value proposition for product X. This would help you craft compelling messages for your products or services. And then catch up on missed Teams meetings. So to stay updated on ongoing projects, you could ask provide a summary on a summary of the updates and the action items on Project X. And this prompt would help you catch up on important developments. But let's get into kind of the structure of how we want to be prompting Copilot. So to get the best responses, it's important to focus on a couple key elements when we're phrasing our Copilot prompts. So first of all is our goal. So our goal is, what response do we want from Copilot? So we want to make sure that we clearly define what we want to achieve with our prompt. And this is going to help Copilot understand the desired outcome and tailor its response accordingly. The next step is the context. Why do you need it and who is involved? So that's providing background information and context to help Copilot understand the situation. So mention why you need the information, who the key stakeholders are, any type of context that you can think of. It's going to help Copilot narrow down its response into to something that you actually want. Then we have our source. So what information sources or samples should Copilot use? So specify any particular sources or examples that you want Copilot to use when generating its response, because that's really going to make sure that the response is relevant and accurate. And it's also really important because Copilot can draw from lots of different places. Obviously, it can draw from the web. It can draw from your whole On365 tenant, so all your emails and Teams messages and documents. So the more specific you are with where Copilot should be drawing its information from, just the more relevant your answer is going to be. And then lastly, expectations. So how should Copilot respond to best meet your expectations? So make sure you outline your expectations for the response. So this is going to include the format, the tone, the level of detail you require, and clear expectations help Copilot deliver a response that meets your needs. So by including all these ingredients in your prompts, you're going to make sure that Copilot's going to give you, the most accurate and useful responses. Cool. So let's break down an example prompt and kind of look about how these kind of four categories apply to a good prompt. So first of all, we have our goal. So our goal here is to just generate 3 to 5 bullet points, nice and straightforward. Sometimes you might want, paragraphs. Sometimes you might want a whole PowerPoint presentation. So it's important that you want to specify exactly what you want. Probably at the beginning is a good place, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And so, yeah, for this example, our goal is to generate 3 to 5 bullet points. Onto our context. So why do you need it and who's involved? So to prepare me for a client with meeting X to discuss their phase 3 brand campaign. So this is going to give Copilot more context for an appropriate answer. It also gives Copilot more info on where you might want to draw from, which is kind of leading to source, but it's all about giving more context and more specificity to lead to a better result. So that brings us to source. What information sources or samples should Copilot use? So here we want to focus on email and Teams chats since June. So giving a really specific source like this is good. You can also just like attach a document or emails or reference a SharePoint site or folder, or just do something like this, just focus on email and Teams chats since June. Given the time frame is really good here because it just kind of narrows down that window. So yeah, this is a great example of the type of information you would want to give Copilot to specify a source. And then lastly, we have our expectations. So in this example here, we say, please use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. Sometimes you might want a more detailed response. Sometimes you might want your responses in a table. There's lots of different things you could ask for. So it's important that you make clear expectations. So this goal, context, source, expectation format is how we generally want to structure prompts. Cool. So we have a little demo here. So we were just talking about is trying to include as much detail as you can and explain how Copilot should respond to your requests and any specific information sources. So here we have two sample prompts for a job description. So our first one is pretty short. You can see just write a job description for a senior project manager. It includes a little bit of information about the job description, that it's a for a senior project manager, but that's about it. And then our second prompt, we have a whole lot more details. And we can see that the text is color coded by kind of the section that we were talking about in the previous slides, our goal, context, source, expectations. So we can see in blue, our goal is to generate a comprehensive job description for a senior project manager. Our context in green is going to be focused on technical project management for consumer electronic hardware. This role is urgent, and the candidate will join a dynamic team. So this is giving Copilot context as to what the PM is going to be doing and also the urgency of the posting. That's also important context. And our source is specified in purple here. Reference our attached company standard specs and industry norms. So we're going to be attaching a document that has a bunch of information about our made up company for the demo purposes today. And then expectations outlined in orange here. So the description should be concise, max 2 pages, including responsibilities and qualifications. So let's open up Word here and just do a quick demo of what these two types of prompts would return. Okay, so our first example here, just write a job description for a senior project manager. So let's see what Copilot gives us here. You can see it's starting to fill things out here. Should be wrapping up quickly. Okay, cool. So let's take a quick look at what we got here. So position overview, senior project manager. Yeah. It seems like we have a lot of content here, but it all seems extremely general, right? It's all kind of cookie cutter, nothing that nothing that you'd really want to actually post because it's so general. It doesn't have anything about the company, obviously. We didn't specify a company. Um, and that's about it. So let's try that again, but using our second prompt, and then we can kind of compare the two. Here's our second prompt, and I'm going to attach. This is basically just a file with some information about the company. Sorry, one moment. Let me just grab the link again. Okay. Okay, let's see what Copilot comes up with here. Not sure why it's doing that. Sorry about this. This was working fine when I was testing it out earlier. We should just be able to reference file. Okay, well, I'm sorry about that, everybody. It seems like Copilot is not happy with my demo right now. So obviously, Copilot's still a fairly new piece of technology, and you will run into issues like this from time to time. I did run this like 30 minutes ago, and it worked just fine. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. I might restart my computer, but obviously that's not really an option right now. But essentially, the demo would have shown that Copilot would have. I can at least show you guys our document here. Um, so Copilot would have essentially taken our more in-depth prompt, and it would have used this document that I tried to attach that apparently it doesn't like right now, kind of covering some details about the company. And it would have created a job description that has a lot more specifics about, the person applying for this job needs to know specific things about, some of these electronic parts and stuff like that. So giving it a source like this with a ton of extra information is going to be able to create a really detailed, relevant job description. But unfortunately, that demo is not working today. So sorry about that, but we can keep going on with our presentation here. Okay. So We'll talk about iterating and improving your prompting. So to get the best results from Copilot, it's pretty essential to keep iterating and refining your prompts. So this process involves like continuously improving, the clarity, the context, and the specificity of your requests to ensure that Copilot understands and responds accurately. So for example, consider the following prompts for preparing a candidate interview. So we have a couple different levels here. So we have our good prompt. So help me prepare for an upcoming candidate interview for a new AI engineering role in our IT department by creating a list of questions. So we can see that we do provide a goal, create a list of questions. That's good. And then we provide a little bit of context, not a ton. So it's not going to generate like a really specific response that we might want. But we're starting somewhere, right? Then we're moving on to better. I'm an HR manager who needs to prepare for a candidate interview for our new AI engineering role in IT. Please prepare a list of appropriate questions for the candidate so that I look prepared during the interview. So there's a lot more context here. We have the HR manager. That's gonna give Copilot a better understanding of what you're trying to do with this prompt. And then it also says prepare a list of appropriate questions for the candidate, which is essentially the same as the previous one. But now let's take a look at the best example prompt here. I'm an HR manager who needs to prepare for a candidate interview for our new AI engineering role in IT. Please review the candidate's resume here, and then the file, and position detail here, and then the file, and provide me a comprehensive list of questions that I can use to determine the candidate's fit against the position. So as you can see, each iteration adds more context and detail, making the prompt clearer and more specific. And this iterative approach is going to help Copilot provide more accurate and relevant responses. And this is something you can do like as you're prompting, right? So you might like when you first open up Copilot, you might type in the first this good answer, right? And then Copilot doesn't quite give you what you want, so you give it a little bit more information. You provide a source, you detail out your expectations, and you can kind of work with Copilot to effectively get to a prompt that will give you the results that you want. So let's think about how to make your prompts more impactful by thinking about how Copilot can help your entire workflow. So ask yourself these questions when prompting. So why am I using this prompt? And understand the purpose of your prompts. Knowing what you need or the information or the task done is going to help you frame your request a lot more effectively. What is the context for this task? So this goes back to providing background information and context. It's just going to help Copilot understand the situation and deliver a more accurate response. And then you can think about what am I going to do with the output of this prompt? So you can think about how you're going to use this information. Are you going to be sending it to somebody else? Are you going to be transforming it into a different format? What am I actually going to be doing with the output of this prompt? And then lastly, can I extend Copilot's capabilities to save more time? So, consider if you can ask Copilot to handle a larger task or automate more work, because obviously that could increase efficiency. A lot of time people ask Copilot if they can do like this small task, but oftentimes these small tasks are part of bigger tasks. So, for example, someone might ask Copilot to create a table of actions and owners from a meeting. And then you just copy and paste the table into to an email, and then you find who it needs to be sent to, etc. Instead, you could just ask Copilot to write an email and include the table and address it to the people relevant. So Copilot can kind of do the entire task all in one. So by doing this, you can leverage Copilot for the whole task and save more time. And by asking these questions and considering the broader context, you can ensure that your prompts are well crafted and that Copilot can provide the most useful and relevant responses. So let's continue with that example here. So we have two different prompts. First one is recap the Contoso and Fabricam sustainability meeting, creating a table for action items, owners, and due dates. And our second prompt is write a follow-up email to the attendees of the Contoso Fabricum Sustainability Meeting with a table showing decisions made, another showing actions and owners, and lastly, a list of considerations for the meeting. So by extending the purpose of the prompts, you can leverage Copilot to handle, more comprehensive tasks and save yourself more time. So instead of just creating a table, ask for Copilot to draft the whole email and attach the attendees of from this meeting that I had. And so it can really do the entirety of the task if you know how to ask it correctly. So since Copilot uses Gen AI, the responses it's going to give are not always going to be the same. But by providing specific instructions, you can narrow down the types of responses it's going to generate. And these instructions can be positive or negative. So you can tell it exactly what it should do, and you can tell it exactly what it shouldn't do. And they're both extremely powerful. So in our first example here, we say, write an overview of how Microsoft 365 Copilot can help improve productivity in enterprises and generate 3 bullet points. And then our second example, we say summarize the latest Microsoft AI announcements for a keynote speech on stage at Ignite, Microsoft's annual conference. Do not include any announcements from before January 2024 and ensure to highlight the impact of these innovations. So in our first prompt, we have a pretty basic example of telling Copilot what to do, right? Generate 3 bullet points on how Copilot can help productivity. Pretty straightforward. But the second prompt is where it gets a little bit more interesting. We're telling it some things to do, which is ensure to highlight the impact of these innovations, but saying don't include any announcements from before January 24. So this is just another way to kind of narrow down the scope of what Copilot is going to be looking at when generating a response for you. And this is definitely something that I didn't do for a long time, but I think it's super helpful knowing what to tell Copilot not to do, because it can just really help you get a lot more specific. Yeah. So here I want to emphasize one of the more valuable things about working with Copilot is like just keeping the conversation going, because prompting isn't just a one-off interaction. It's a process where follow-ups can refine and improve the results you get. So the idea is to approach prompting as a collaboration between you and Copilot. When you follow up on your initial request, you guide Copilot to better understand your needs and produce more tailored responses. So you can think about it like giving feedback to a colleague. You wouldn't expect a perfect result the first time without any input or clarification. So let's break down a couple of key examples here. So for generating content ideas, you start with broad and general requests. For instance, you might ask Copilot for creative ideas for a blog post. But the magic happens when you follow up with more specifics. So stuff like, the audience focus or the tone or what are the desired outcomes. And this iterative process is what's going to narrow down Copilot's response and get more, just get better content. So enabling insightful meetings, a simple meeting recap is great, but you don't have to stop there. You can ask Copilot for more. What were the key decisions and what actions you need to follow up on? And this ensures that you don't miss any crucial details and keeps you fully informed. So this is definitely one that I use a whole lot. It's extremely helpful to have, obviously to have meeting notes, but to interact with Copilot after the fact. And ask, is there anything that I'm supposed to do here? Or, what did John think of X? Really pushing what Copilot is capable of and continuing to talk to it and interact with it. It's just going to gain more and more value. Storytelling assistance. This is a little bit more of a creative example, but Copilot can help craft narratives, but it thrives when you provide more guidance. So you might begin with the basic story request, but as the story develops, you can refine the characters, the plot, or the tone, and ensure it aligns with your goals. Gaining insight. So don't just ask for a file summary. You can ask Copilot follow-up questions that dive deeper into specific areas of the document. This approach allows you to extract critical insights that might not have been obvious in your initial response. This is also super helpful in stuff like Excel, where Copilot can give you insights into your data, which definitely might not be obvious at all by just like looking at a bunch of data. But you can ask Copilot lots of questions about the data, and it can basically tell you about it in natural language, which is super helpful. And one of the use cases I definitely use quite a bit. Translating languages. Copilot can translate sentences in supported languages, but you can push this further by asking for context, cultural nuances, or even regional dialects. And this ensures that your translations are not only accurate, but also culturally relevant. And the last, solving technical problems. When working through a technical issue, Copilot can offer really broad solutions, but as you narrow the problem down and ask for more step-by-step guidance, it becomes a really powerful troubleshooting, debugging tool. So I use Copilot in Excel quite a bit, and it helps me a lot with figuring out like kind of errors in my formulas and suggesting, more elegant ways of doing things. So yeah, just keep the conversation going, and you don't know where we're going to end up, but it's probably going to be helpful. Giving feedback. This is another important concept. Copilot's not going to get angry at you, so make sure you're giving it as much feedback as possible. So we can look at a couple examples here. So hopefully you guys can see the screenshot here, but it's asking, why is Viva Dashboard useful? Please use one sentence. And so Copilot comes back with one sentence, but we feel like it's too vague. So we give a little feedback. We say, the sentence is too vague. Can you be more specific? And then it gives us a couple sentences, a paragraph. But that's too much. We really just want one sentence, but we like where it's heading. So we say, thank you. Can you please add a sentence that summarizes the main point of that paragraph? And then finally, we get to that one sentence that we actually like. So this is just kind of an example of how you can give Copilot feedback to eventually get to an end product that you're happy with. Here's another feedback example. So if Copilot gives you a response that's not quite right, you can ask it how you could phrase the prompt differently to get a better outcome. You could also ask for more context, especially if you're dealing with specialized content. Copilot's ability to engage in this feedback loop allows for a continuous improvement, both in terms of the AI's responses and in your own prompt crafting skills. So an example here, we're giving a little bit more feedback. We're saying, is there any more information you need to create more examples? So we're just asking Copilot, like, hey, is there more information you might need? And this is something I've started doing recently, and it's really helpful because sometimes if you don't give Copilot enough information, it's still going to give you a response, to its best knowledge. But if you ask it like, hey, what additional information would, enhance this response, then it will ask you questions, and you can fill in the blanks and kind of go back and forth together to get to a great end result. So yeah, in this example, we say, how about using some sports related ideas? This is kind of an out of context clip, but you can basically just get a sense of how feedback works in that context. Kind of going off of that, asking for more, Copilot is not going to get tired. So one of the biggest advantages of working with Copilot is it's not going to lose patience with you, not going to get tired. You can ask it to generate multiple versions or rewrite sections or offer fresh ideas without worrying about overload. So this makes Copilot super useful for brainstorming sessions or when you need variations of the same content. So for instance, if you're drafting an email, you can ask Copilot to write it in different tones, like a formal one, a casual, or persuasive, and then choose the version that best suits your needs. And this adaptability is one of Copilot's most powerful features, so make sure you use it. And here's a couple examples asking Copilot for more. So we have a couple prompt examples here. Give me 10 ideas for an opening paragraph. Rewrite the section in 5 distinct styles. Give me 3 analogies that might resonate with its audience. And I would I definitely do this all the time. asking Copilot for, not just like one of whatever I want. I ask it for 10 and then I pick the best one. And I've had a lot of success with that. But yeah, you can get an idea of what that looks like on the screenshot on the right. So give me 10 ideas for an opening paragraph. And so see, just give you 10 different ideas and rewrite the section in 5 distinct styles. It's really good at that too, getting different tones in your language. This is also just super helpful when brainstorming because it can just generate ideas very quickly. And you can kind of just sit back and filter through them and then take some that you like and then go from there. Yeah. Um, Giving examples. So giving examples and referencing documents is super powerful in Copilot. So for instance, you're creating a proposal for a sales meeting and you have an existing business proposal that you like. You can instruct Copilot to use that document as a guide. So basically what we were trying to do earlier in that demo, which didn't work, unfortunately, for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. It normally should work, but that's basically what we're talking about here. So this is going to save a lot of time, but it's also going to ensure that the final document is consistent with your brand standards or your previous work. And this method also minimizes the time you'd otherwise spend reviewing and editing the content. So what makes this so powerful is that Copilot isn't just like replicating what you give it. It's using the example to inform and enhance the new content, whether it's writing reports, emails, or presentations, or providing a well-structured reference document. It's going to dramatically improve the output relevance and quality. And if you keep points to remember, using examples, always provide Copilot with high quality, relevant examples that accurately reflect what you want. Customization, Copilot tailors the new content to the structure and tone of the provided materials, but the output is unique to the new task. And then consistency. This method ensures that your documents, proposals, or presentations maintain a consistent style, reducing the time needed for manual formatting or revisions. So in practice, this can be an absolute game changer when managing repetitive tasks or ensuring uniformity across large projects. Cool. And that is all I have for you. So yeah, open up to questions and answers. You guys can scan this this QR code if you want to receive this PowerPoint. But yeah, let me just check and see if there's any questions in the chat here. Yes. Okay. Yeah, Chad. So absolutely. I'll pull this back up. But yeah, if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to a link where where you can give us your email information and we'll send you that we'll send you the deck. No problem. I'll make it big so everyone has a chance to scan that if they want to.
Logan, yeah,
Yeah.
Kevin and ask the question. You can please check it. Yeah, Kevin and me.
Okay. Okay. So benefits over ChatGPT and other AI services. So I personally would say that the integration with the M365 environment is the biggest advantage over ChatGPT. Just in my opinion, just being able to, open up Outlook and say, hey, can you organize my emails from, most important to least important, or, going into an Excel and asking it to do a bunch of stuff with data and it just working in Excel. So if you're already using Microsoft products, I think that's just going to be the biggest advantage over ChatGPT or other AI solutions for that matter. So yeah, that's what I would say. And then Kevin, we're in a GCCH MS365 environment. So I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm not like I don't have a ton of super technical background. But I can look into that and get back to you though, because we have a bunch of people on our team who probably know exactly what that means. It could help out. But yeah, if you fill out that form, I could look into that for you and definitely get back via email. Awesome. Cool. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we can probably wrap up a little bit earlier here. I'll give it like one more minute, but yeah. Kevin, can you store core memories? What I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. Oh, got you. Yes, that's definitely something you can do with Copilot. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'll definitely follow up with some more information with you. And we can get you in touch with somebody who has a little bit more experience on the technical side of things, and can help you out with stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely a feature that you can do. Um, Adrian, I've heard of having conversations with Gen AI to formulate prompts prior to responding, prompting to ask for all information needing. Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely something I've used in the past. Actually, something more so more recently, but yeah, this is absolutely something I'd recommend, because you're interacting with the thing itself. It knows what it needs in terms of prompting and stuff. So I think talking about that with Gen AI, to create a great prompt and then going back in and then using it is super helpful. Yeah, I definitely keep on doing that. Forster, I like the four ways to compile a command. What if you need to dive into further? Can you continue to ask more directive prompts to get better output? Yeah, no, absolutely. So, um, you know, I think the four sections of the prompt is a good place to start, but you can just keep diving in and giving more and more details. You really can't give too many details or too much information. I've written prompts that are like entire paragraphs, and they do generate better results. It's not like it caps out at a certain point where the details stop like mattering as much, if that makes sense. So I think as long as you just keep adding more details and get more specific and ask more questions, you can get deeper and deep. You can get as deep as you want prompting, and that's going to result in better and better outputs. Adrian, is it true you can share access to documents you have created and in time will learn to style to use in your response? Yes, absolutely. That is true. Okay, I think we'll keep the meeting open for like one more minute if, oh yeah, okay, we got another question. Is Copilot in chat linked to Copilot in Excel or no? No. So, oh wait, are you asking about Copilot chat or like, like Copilot chat as in the free version of Copilot? Is that what you're asking about? Um, I'm not sure. Okay, so yeah, Adrian asked, Copilot, are Copilot in Word and Copilot in Excel and Copilot in Teams, are they all linked? So, I mean, I guess it depends on exactly what you're asking about. They're linked in that, if you ask things to one of them, the other will know, but like you can't, like for example, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking, but you can't in Copilot in Excel be like, hey, can you create a PowerPoint from this Excel sheet? So there's certain like interactions that don't quite work yet, and possibly in the future they will. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but let me know. Okay, but could I refer to information used in a prompt on Word and a prompt in Excel? Yeah, you should be able to do that. Yes. Uh, so we haven't run any sessions on Copilot agent creation, but we do have a that is something that we probably will do in the future, first of all. But we also do have a podcast that we upload to YouTube where we talk about all sorts of different Copilot um, topics. It's called the Copilot Compass. I can pull that back up. You can see the name here. And we have a full episode on creating agents in Copilot Studio. So if you want to learn all about that, you can go to our YouTube channel and check that out. One of the episodes should be titled, creating agents in studios. I definitely think at some point we'll do a webinar like this on creating agents. But yeah, if you want more information about that, you should check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks, Logan. We are going
Awesome.
to
Thanks.
end this session. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
Thank you
sounds
all.
good.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all. Yeah.
everybody.